Corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. There's a drive. Way back. It's complete. Playing a high drive into left. Back goes to Craig. He's at the track. He has it. And the Cardinals world champion for 2011. A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it to Rizzo. It's in time. And the Chicago Cubs win the World Series.
This is the Team of Rivals podcast. No insiders, no anonymous sources, just passionate analysis from the bleacher seats. Here are your hosts, Ron, Pete, and Elliott.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to this week's show. It is August 23rd. We missed the who just texted me? Who texted me right when the intro music ended and it dinged out loud? Which the hell one of you did that?
Wasn't me.
Elliott, you got it guilt written all over your face. Unbelievable. This is how we start our show tonight. We've been rock solid, locked and cocked
for 15
week over
seconds.
week. And you do this, you pull this shit on me right to start out with.
Hey.
Unbelievable.
Why isn't your shit on mute?
That's a good question. Probably 'cause it usually is. All right, everyone. So, hey, we've got a lot to discuss this week. We have several things. I love how the races are heating up. The excitement's rising. You guys are still through all this noise, this sound. The Cubs still maintain, I think, a fairly good lead on the Central. But we definitely have some stuff to talk about a little bit later in the show. But before we get to that, Pete and Elliott, guys, this has been it's been a very interesting week. We've got a couple acquisitions we want to bring up later. But other than that, has the week gone okay? You guys, how you guys holding up? You're holding off the Reds right now. That's
before more than holding off. They just added another run. It's 5-1 in the seventh.
5-1. Okay.
Before last night, I was ready to start pulling down walls whenever I saw them because 5 straight games of 1 run, all of them on solo home runs, about had me at my limit.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be a hit by pitch, an error, and then a drop wedge that falls in front of the left fielder, and then they'd score 9 runs off of that. But as I interrupt my way into the podcast.
Pete, why don't you introduce our guest?
I absolutely will. So I don't know. What do you think? It was about 3-4 weeks ago. We started following this guy, Tim Huwe. And he is for Cardinals fans who aren't familiar with him. He is the equivalent of your Kyle Reese. He gets up at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and turns on the Dominican Summer League and follows Cubs minor league baseball through the day. I want to know what inheritance you stumbled onto that you're able to do that. But Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
He's got a bunch of patents.
Not a problem at all.
He sold a bunch of patents off, I think.
It's more. I've been in healthcare in one fashion or another for a really long time, and I just realized, I'm tired of this. I'm not getting a thing out of it, and I'm basically in between gigs right now, and realize that paying attention to baseball is right now what I have to be doing because that's what I enjoy doing.
That's awesome.
And the following the DSL, I started doing that 2012, 2013, and the box scores are available. If you ever do the MILB.com, you can check the Springfield Cardinals box scores. You can check the box scores from the Carolina League. You can check the box scores from anywhere. And back then I was checking the Dominican and Venezuelan box scores just because they were representing the Cubs. Whether I've seen them play, whether there's any audio, if there is a guy, Geronimo Garcia. Let's sound neutral enough for a Dominican League player.
Yeah.
If he's on your team and he's kicking butt and you realize it and nobody else is talking about it, are you going to check to see what city he's from or how old he is? Might as well. And I don't think that was me.
Ron, mute. Come on.
And
man.
I got to the point where I just started following the Dominican League games and the Venezuelan League games back when the VSL was around. And I just started looking at the names, and the names fascinate me as far as how old is this guy and what sort of a translation should there be from if he does this well in the Dominican League, how well should he do in the Arizona League or the Northwest League or the Florida State League, whichever. And the concept of if a guy's doing well at this level, how well should he do at the next level just became a thing that was fascinating to me. Most people, when they talk about prospects, they do he has a 55 fastball or he has a 60 curve, right? That's what most people are about. And I can't really look at a curve. A guy bounces one, then he snaps one off. Well, that was a 20 followed by a 60. What do I call that? Because, you can do at his peak, he's a 55 or a 60. But he's bouncing him off the plate, and the catcher's getting bad knees trying to stop him from going to the backstop. They both are there. When you have a guy who hits a 82 mile an hour flat cement mixer, 490, well, like Baez did tonight, yeah, that's really good. That's absolutely amazing, but there are also and guys will do that in the minor leagues, not necessarily that far. And then the next night they'll go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts.
Right.
And the entire concept of how instead of putting numbers on things, I'm more about what's the likelihood of this guy doing fairly well at the next level. So back in 2014, I was watching the Dominican Summer League, the Venezuelan Summer League. And yes, podcast listeners, this does lead somewhere. A guy popped on my screen. I'd never seen his name before, and I immediately checked into him. He was a shortstop from Caracas, Venezuela, Andrew Monasterio. Didn't know the name at all, but this was his first game. And I looked at it like, wow, okay, this is a new name to me. This is new news. Looked him up, and he did fairly well as a 16, 17-year-old first-year player. And he just moved along through the system. It was never a case of this guy's going to be the next Ernie Banks or Ozzie Smith or whatever. It's just he's a guy. He's doing fairly well. And each year he kept getting better. And he kept moving on through the system. And never at any point did anybody say, this guy's top 12 in the system, because he wasn't. He was just a guy who was doing fairly well at his level, age equivalent. And last week when it was announced that the Cubs had acquired, now I'm blanking out on the bit of information that everybody knows.
Daniel Murphy.
Yes, Daniel Murphy. When the name popped that Andrew Monasterio was the guy who was traded, it's like, oh, I've been following him like forever, ever since his first. So that was it. And it wasn't a case of bittersweet, because going to the Nationals, he's actually going to have a chance to play. The Nationals system, I don't know a whole lot about it, but with Daniel Murphy as their second baseman, he's about as useful as a lawn chair defensively. And Monasterio is going to get a chance to play with them. I don't know what their system is, but I checked. He started and hit second tonight, and it's great that he's going to be able to actually play and have a chance to move up the system. And when I was learning about Monasterio, well, when I made sure to listen to the Myrtle Beach broadcast, he'd advanced to advanced A in the Cubs system and was having a very good year, much better this year than the year before. I wanted to make sure to listen to the Myrtle Beach broadcast that night, because I knew there would be Monasterio stories, because when you get attached to anyone, it's not just, ooh, there's a name, or, ooh, he might go to the major leagues, or he might. When you start to get attached to something, that's what it becomes. And with me, with the minor leagues, that's what it becomes. And Monasterio, when I was listening to the game that night, he's a bit of the very popular ringleader with Myrtle Beach when he was there. And they were driving from South Carolina to Winston-Salem, North Carolina for a game that night. And they're riding the bus. The game was at night. They're riding the bus. And the manager called him to the front of the bus and told him that, oh, by the way, you've been traded. And on his way back to the seat in the back, he was doing the high five hug line with everyone, whether it was a Dominican League player or a white college pitcher from the Cubs had drafted in the second or third day of the draft, or whether it was an equipment manager or the guy who ran the videotape. He was seriously a friend with all of them. And it's really nice to hear not only is Monasterio like that, but so many of the guys in the Cubs pipeline are. And for you Cardinals fans, the Cubs are drafting from the same list as the Cardinals. The Cubs aren't drafting from the same list as a lot of teams, but the Cubs and the Cardinals are generally drafting from the same list. Guys, Ponce de Leon, who recently debuted, was a Cubs draft pick. They didn't sign him because he had injury concerns. There have been quite a few cross-pollinations both ways. They both look for the same type of player. But Monasterio got better offensively and defensively every season. Last year, I had mentioned he's from Caracas, Venezuela, not a great place to be from. His family's home was robbed last year. And in the offseason, he had helped them move to a bit of a better location. And, it's nice to hear that he's still remembering the home. He's still remembering the family and helping them along. So it was nice to hear him getting traded. And it was nice to hear the Cubs, who supposedly have a bottom of the barrel organization, getting some credit as far as teams being interested in their players.
So let me ask you something, Tim, because I know that the reaction of a lot of, I think, Cubs fans when it was announced that Monasterio was the player being sent was, I think the reaction was who?
Who? Exactly.
Did people just not know about him? Did they sell him short? Because I think a lot of the attention focuses on the high profile draft picks and the guys who are performing really well at AA, and then the guys who are at AAA. And I think that a lot of people sell short the guys who are in the lower levels of the minors. And I think that's
definitely.
But people weren't familiar with Monasterio. He's not one of those names that's been on the top prospects list. So are the Cubs losing somebody who's going to be significant someday, or is he just going to be, a quality utility type?
I'll answer the first part. I'll answer the first part first. People pay attention to the top 100 list.
Right.
Beyond that, 85% of the baseball fans who pay any attention to the minor leagues, which eliminates a whole lot of people, but 85% of the people who pay attention to the minor leagues at all are which guys are in the top 100, the Baseball America top 100 list. Other than that, they're garbage. That's the mindset. And it's wrong, because no matter which team you're looking at, how high did Ponce de Leon or Gomber get in the Baseball America list before they got called up?
4.
No. Again, nobody had ever heard of him. I knew about Gomber because
Kyle Reese is live right now. Should we break in?
He's probably freaking out.
Yeah,
I knew about him.
But no, Gomber, I'd listened to him against, he was pitching against Iowa. Iowa couldn't hit him. Iowa couldn't do a thing against him. David Bodie, he gets called up. Who's he? And he all of a sudden starts playing really well. How is this happening? Well, 2 years ago, he was having 100-mile-an-hour exit velocities, but you weren't really paying attention because he wasn't on the top 100 list of Baseball America.
Right.
Well, why wasn't Baseball America paying any attention? Well, they only have 100 spots for the top 100, and frankly, Bodie shouldn't have been on there because, there are a lot of other players who higher ceilings and all that kind of stuff. So will Monasterio be any good? Whether it's Monasterio or Raleigh Lacey, who they traded in one of the other trades, if Ricky Tyler Thomas, who they traded in one of the trades, if those guys end up being good, that's phenomenal. I'm absolutely ecstatic when guys who used to be in the Cubs system but get traded elsewhere do well. Isaac Paredes is doing very well in the Tigers system. Cool. Might the Cubs end up regretting it? Sure. Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez are going to be really good for the White Sox. Is that a horrible thing for the Cubs? No. They knew what they needed. They needed Jose Quintana to win the division last year. If they don't get Quintana, they don't win the division. If they don't make that trade, they probably trade Wade Davis and get somebody from the Nationals. So it's if you're in the race, you're going to make trades. If you're not in the race, you're also going to make trades. They're going to be different kind of trades, but Monasterio he's going to become who he ends up being, and I can't tell you right now if that's going to be a fill-in at the major league level, because every year he's been getting better offensively and defensively. When I talk about prospects improving, one of the things I talk about is, are either of you, any of you familiar with like Dungeons and Dragons and that kind of stuff, where you have the multi-sided dice?
Elliott is.
Multi-sided die?
Yeah, I'm familiar
Before the
with
season, there you go. Whichever prospect you're talking about or thinking about, just randomly think of one. Don't say who it is. Tell me when you have one. Okay. Prospect now. Yeah. Okay, for next year, mentally roll a 20-sided die. If it's a 16, he has a really good season. If it's a 4, he's terrible. They can do all the preparation work they want. They can do all the practice they want. They can do everything they can possibly do. They can walk into camp in perfect shape, and then all of a sudden, you Darvish.
Well,
the body doesn't.
But isn't that the beauty of thing, guys? I mean, we have something like a baseball's top 100. We have all these things here, but these are that's the thing. I mean, analytics are what they are, and I think they've in some way. You guys, Pete, Elliott, you guys know that sometimes I roll my eyes a little bit when we start talking about too much exit velocity or launch angle. Sometimes, like every damn time. But no. I mean, look, it's a little bit of laziness on my part because it's a lack of understanding. It's also I'm approaching middle age. I'm rocketing towards mortality. I'm a little reluctant to learn these new things. But I think that's the beauty of looking at young players like this. I mean, you might have a top 100, but you might have a guy that might be 256 down the list, but he comes up in an entirely different set of circumstances than prospect number 9, where prospect 256 is a great fastball hitter. He comes up and in a division or a league that has a lot of fireballers up there. And so all these, I guess my point is, like, there's so many different variables, so many different levers that can be pulled.
You have no idea.
Right. You have no idea.
Last year, I'd gone out to Mesa for Cubs camp, Cubs spring training. And I'd seen who was doing what. And when I got home from camp, I found out that Adbert Alzolay was going to be the opening day starter for Myrtle Beach. And I was thinking, oh, that's so adorable that they're letting him be the opening day starter because he's the 4th best starter on the staff. That was me thinking. And I'm the person who'd just come from Mesa and I'd seen players playing and I'm supposed to know what I'm talking about. And about 3 starts into the season, I'm thinking, wait a minute, this guy's good. He ran into a pitching coach that clicked with him. The pitching coach believed in him and pushed him both at the same time. And all of a sudden, Alzolay began to realize, oh, I can be really good. His numbers previously in Myrtle Beach, in South Bend, had been very ordinary. 4.5 ERA. Just you look at it and there wasn't a there. He runs into the right coach at the right time. Bam. David Bodie wasn't playing at all in 2015 in South Bend. He just wasn't playing at all. They had a couple of guys get hurt, and he ended up having to play in August. That was the first year the first month he'd ever hit 300 in the minor leagues. So the next year he moved up, and he was buried behind Ian Happ, Gleyber Torres, Rashad Crawford, a couple other guys. And he was the 25th guy in the team. He would get shipped up to AA or AAA when they had a guy who got hurt because they figured, well, if we send this guy to AA or AAA and he completely pancakes, well, it won't completely entirely wreck his psyche. And we're really not worried because he's really not a thing. So then Happ gets called up. Torres gets traded away. Rashad Crawford gets traded away in the same trade. Now all of a sudden, we have to play this Bodie guy. Go for it. And he has an incredible month and a half. Now all of a sudden he's on the radar. Why? Because he got to play. And when players have a uniform, when players get a chance to play, the light either goes on or it doesn't. If the light doesn't go on, then he's never going to be a thing. But if the light does go on with Monasterio, if he gets much better than he is now, he will be a major leaguer. And if you have a quick, smart, very easy to get along with middle infielder, they can play.
Tim, if you don't mind me asking,
not a problem.
Give us a couple examples of things you've seen that are exactly what you just described. Player gets a chance, light goes on. Player gets a chance, light doesn't. Like two that come to the front of your mind.
Bodie and Elzalay are two of the better examples. I will probably have another one here in a couple minutes. But there, it's just baseball is a process. Right. And so many baseball fans think, okay, well, his estimated time of arrival is going to be June of 2020 and, this or that. But all of a sudden a guy gets injured. He gets injured or he doesn't pass a drug screen or, he has a slump. People can get better. People can get worse. And what's ending up happening with the Cubs is everyone knows the guys at the major league level. People also know the guys who are a bit below, as far as maybe they've seen Dwayne Underwood pitch, maybe they saw Alec Mills pitch, maybe they've seen Zagunis hit, and they have a degree of familiarity with them, and of course they have a familiarity with the guys who are at the major league level. And the concept is Chris Bryant is going to be around forever. Kyle Schwarber is going to be around forever. Wilson Contreras is going to be around forever. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen, it's a money league. Once you start getting expensive, you have to live up to that.
Is Wilson Contreras going to be behind the plate more than 2 more years? I mean, based on what I saw in South Bend last weekend.
Amaya's going to be
days are numbered.
Yeah, he's going to be a beast. He's going to be a beast, and they have guys coming up behind them. It used to be in the Cubs system. Well, you have Josh Vitters and you have Felix P.A. and then you have a bunch of rubbish. That's what it used to be.
Yeah, so you had a bunch of rubbish and even more rubbish.
Well, right, and we have another personality that my guys here like on Twitter, who declares beast often.
Okay,
so, guys, can you lighten Tim a little bit on what I'm talking?
I'm sure
about?
He's familiar with Michael Cerami.
I love. I love it when he makes a prediction, Tim, because I love it.
I didn't. I honestly didn't know how to pronounce the name. You said it, and it's like, okay, now I know how to see. I've learned something.
It's like ceramic.
We don't know how to say it either.
Yeah.
I think it's like ceramic without the C on the end, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And but what ends up happening with the Cubs is, the guys who are there, and I run into so much. The end of the world happens at 2021 because nobody has any idea what's coming next.
God, I hope so.
Fair assessment. That's a fair assessment, though, right?
Yeah.
That there are a lot of people who are thinking 2022. We're going to be signing guys from the YMCA league and just putting them out in center field, and we have no idea. So since there's no familiarity,
fans, they think that's what we've got already anyway.
No,
it's overrated.
No, not Cardinals fans that actually pay attention to baseball.
On Twitter.
Yeah, you know what,
Cardinals
guys? If you the zealots on Twitter, either no matter what team.
Man, zealots on Twitter. I have to pick my battles because there's so much education that could be done.
Oh, yeah.
But what you really need is a red light, green light system. As far as red light is, I just want to tell you what I think, and green light is I actually want to learn things.
Right.
Because the people who actually want to learn things, I have a great time talking with them because they actually want to know. Whereas the people with the red light are more than willing to tell you that Yu Darvish is faking an injury. Like what?
You know, that,
How do you fake an injury like that? My elbow isn't working. How can you fake that?
Speaking of Jim, that actually brings a thought to mind. Has the Cubs system improved from a pitching standpoint? Because
yes, and that's
2012 that, you know, they're good at developing pitching players, but they're not good or position players, but they're not
position players
at developing pitchers. Has that changed of late?
That's really good, Pete. I wanted to ask the same thing, the assessment on that.
Great question. Okay. It's about a 3-part answer. One is Chris Bryant and Kyle Schwarber and Ian Happ. Those guys zoom to the major leagues. Yeah, if you're good enough in the minor leagues as a hitter, okay, you put them in the Northwest League, they're crushing the league. Okay, there's no point in them being there. Now let's bring them up to the Midwest League. Okay, they're crushing that. When you're crushing as a hitter, you just keep moving up, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
With a pitcher, it's an entirely different mindset. And I'll use a bit of Cardinals analogy here with Michael Wacha. I think the Cardinals pushed him a little bit too quickly in that he was having success and they figured, well, he seems to be doing well here. Let's move him along more quickly. And there are some things that possibly they could have done. He could have worked on his secondary pitches a little bit longer, or he could have worked on his conditioning a little bit more. I don't know. I'm guessing there, but the Cardinals actually needed him at the major league level to be good. So they kind of rushed him.
Well,
I hope that's the case with Jordan Hicks.
Well, no, Tim, I want to chime in on that because I don't disagree.
Okay.
I actually don't disagree with you, and I'm the Cardinal fan, by the way.
Okay.
Because if you think about this, and there's another little tidbit here that nobody would ever admit I'm right or wrong, but
okay,
but you have to say, look, a byproduct of Albert Pujols signing with Los Angeles Angels when he was a free agent was the pick that scored them Michael Wacha.
Oh, okay.
So how
I'd looked that up at some point and I'd forgotten that bit. Yeah.
But
yeah, that's correct.
If you throw that into the equation, now the Cardinals, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt for developing pitching because right now I talked about it on the show we were on before recording this that they actually have. I mean, I'm very careful to not sound like overconfident about what we have. I'm just saying right now I feel like we have a young unproven, but we have a young embarrassment of riches of arms at the moment. And,
exactly. The Cardinals for the last 50 or 60 years have known exactly how to draft good pitching and develop it. Period. If anyone wants to argue that, I'm a Cubs fan. If anybody wants to argue that,
oh no,
Tim, I'm at Tim815 on Twitter. Feel free to go there.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Is it Braden?
Hey, Daddy-O.
Hey, B.
So
Tim,
we're doing pretty good right now.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have like medication or something tonight? Why are you smiling like that? I'm sorry, Tim. My 13-year-old infiltrates the podcast.
Oh, not a problem.
If not every week, every other week. Yeah.
That's what 13-year-olds are for.
Yeah. So we're talking to him right now. He can hear all you guys.
Yep.
B. So give us so you got a very confident smirk on your face. You like what the Cardinals are doing right now. You know there's a bunch of Cub fans on the line right now. So there's a motivation for you calling right now. So go ahead and get it out of your 13-year-old system.
The thing I'm most happy about is we got Fat Adams back.
He's not fat anymore.
Mad Adams,
I don't care. He's always Fat Adams to me.
Is that it, Braden? Are you just going to hang up after that?
In MLB, like 17 and stuff,
Jesus.
I always change his name to Fat Adams.
Okay. All right.
It's wonderful when a team is in a situation where they can take advantage of a team who's giving up for the season.
Yeah.
true.
The more times you can be in that situation, the better off you are.
Walt Jocketty, before the John Mozeliak Cardinal era, Walt Jocketty was a master at plucking guys. Will Clark came over to the Cardinals for the stretch run of the Orioles team that was done. He was in recent memory. I'm not sure, Pete, you guys, we've looked at baseball for years, right? We can look at GMs and say, hey, there are guys that have been really good about doing this. But for the Cardinals, from my perspective, like Walt Jocketty was the best bottom feeder in August.
Oh yeah, I've infuriated Cardinals fans on this, and it's not a put down. What they would do quite often, they'd look at the division. Now, much of the time, the Cardinals were in a division with 2 or 3 dog stuff teams between the Pirates, the Cubs, the Brewers, the Astros. They were usually in a 2 or 3 team division, and they knew it. And what they would a lot of times do is, okay, I think we have about 89, 90, maybe 91 win team. That should be good to get us through until August. And then they'd play through. They'd be right about on target, and something would happen. And one of the 2 teams that they were up against, they'd have some injuries, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, the Cardinals are sitting really nice shape, and they have a couple of minor leaguers who other teams are possibly more interested than even the Cardinals are. And the Cardinals trade off this guy from Advanced A for Will Clark or whoever it is
Mike
that
Temlin
year.
Right.
Exactly. And all of a sudden now they have a 94, 95 win team, and they get to beat the snot out of the 2 or 3 really bad teams in the division. They really benefited from the Cubs being bad. They really benefited from the Brewers being bad.
Those were such good days.
Yeah, exactly.
You miss those?
And
I do. I miss them terribly.
Like I say, when I say that to some Cardinals fans, they get upset because, oh no, it wasn't like that.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was exactly like that.
Yeah.
and right now, back to the Cubs pitching, it takes a lot less time to develop a hitter. So the Cubs were leaning hitters early, pitchers later. And the pitching hadn't entirely been developing as they'd wanted. And it was a constantly adjust things on the fly. 2016 and 2017, all the Cubs draft was pitching. Mm-hmm. If you want, go look it up on BBRef or whatever your source is. Everybody, they would, 2/3 of their draft was pitchers. Over that, I think one year they had 14 of their first 16 draft picks were pitchers, something like that. Another pitcher. What they ended up having is that they kept moving along. The Cubs don't specifically draft velocity.
Right.
Everyone is addicted, addled, or whatever you want to use to the radar gun. Does he throw 97? Does he throw 98? If he throws 98, that he hits the bull never really comes up, because after all, he throws 98. The Cubs are much more interested in the guy who throws 92, 93, but has 3 pitches.
Yeah.
And those guys have slowly been moving up through the system. Their current Tennessee Smokies AA rotation, Duncan Robinson, Matt Swarmer, Michael Rucker, Thomas Hatch, Keegan Thompson, and Justin Steele. All 6 of those. Robinson just got called up to AAA. All 6 of those guys, none of them are Rule 5 eligible this offseason. And all of them have been pretty much on fire the last month.
So my son here has a question, because he needs to go
wonderful.
to bed. He needs to go to bed. Braden, this is a minor league expert on the Cubs system. So who should the Cardinals, not the Padres, because the Padres will pilfer any system.
Especially the Cardinals. Especially the Cardinals.
Don't even get me going
Luis
on that.
Perdomo.
Oh my God! You talk about GM after GM that doesn't have any clue what to do. Oh, we'll just take Rule 5 people forever.
Exactly.
And then we'll sign a free agent that we have no business signing because we're not going anywhere. League contraction. Let's play in Mexico next year.
Eric
bitches, I hate that team.
Crap. I'm just going to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt very quickly. Cole Hamels just got a complete game.
Yep.
Cubs' first complete game of the year.
complete game. I've heard this term
just
before.
An eye roll?
Yeah.
Was it this a 7-inning completion of a doubleheader in the?
Yeah.
That's the only time I hear about complete games anymore. Wow, that'll help the bullpen.
All right, so
114 pitches ended on a 5-3 double play.
So for Braden to get you happy for tonight, so we can exit this. Hey, ask Tim. He's a Cubs minor league expert. Who should, when you're building your next MLB, the show 2018 team, who should you trade for from the Cubs organization that can boost your Cardinal team?
The dude that.
No, I'm asking him for you.
I would.
Yeah,
if Miguel
was talking about, like, I traded for Jose Quintana.
Oh,
I want him.
Jimenez, Eloy
Jimenez. Yeah, that's a good choice. That was a really interesting. Eloy Jimenez and Dylan Cease both would be very good. Justin Steele is a name that not a lot of people have heard of. He's a left-hander. He throws 95, 96.
He's writing it down. He's writing right now.
He has a repertoire because the Cubs don't draft guys who just throw really fast. He was a really good pitcher. He went down for Tommy John surgery just about a year ago.
That means he'll throw
and he's
stronger.
Already back. He's mowing down people, and he got moved up from advanced A, which is where he was last year when he had the surgery, and he just got moved up to double A because nobody in advanced A could hit him.
All right, Braden, so you'll probably be able to dupe Theo and Jed on the show. On the MLB the show, you can dupe both of them. Just turn the trade restrictions off and just pilfer them and let us know how they do next year. All right?
There you go.
That's not good for radio, Braden. When you just shake your head yes, nobody can hear that.
And then,
I've never made a franchise where I get easy trades. It's all management.
No, you turn them off. You take those guys you just said, all right?
No.
All right, fine.
I'm a trade expert.
All right, you got school tomorrow. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, unfortunately.
What, unfortunately talking to me, or you got school?
No, school.
All right.
Unfortunately, there's school. I think that's what that sounds like.
I know, but I got to clarify.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is in a couple years, the Cubs are going to need to replace Kyle Hendricks.
Bye.
Yep.
They're going to need to replace Kyle Hendricks. They're going to need to replace John Lester. They're going to need to replace whoever. And if the Cubs don't have homegrown available pitching that's quality, they're screwed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They do.
The position players are really expensive enough.
Well, Tim, one of the things that we had a couple of weeks ago, we had Kyle Reese, who's equivalent to you. I'm going
to have to look him up on Twitter because he sounds like
he's Kyle R 416, right?
Kyle R 416. I'll have to look that up.
Kyle R 416. I think that's his Twitter handle. He's the Cardinals expert on the minor league system. He's actually doing he does a show called Prospects After Dark. Once a week.
Right.
He's just he's like you, a wealth of knowledge on the minor league system. But I'd really be curious to know, like, you guys do all this work. You know all these players, but I want to know from just the Cubs angle here. Like, it's always been Kyle's rule has always been you don't pay for pitching. Right. But I would argue one point, at least on the Cubs front, is that they've got their money out of Lester. Even though his last year or two might not be there.
Right now, it looks like they've gone 1 of 4 on their free agent signings under Theo with the pitchers.
For pitching.
Now. Now, that could change. Chatwood could all of a sudden remember how to throw strikes. Darvish could be healthy and be very good the next few years. But it's when you have to buy something on the open market in baseball, whatever it is, it's really expensive. Yep. If a team goes into an off season and realizes, OMG, we don't have a center fielder at all, and they have to go out and buy a center fielder on the open market,
Cardinals.
It's going to be really hard. And I wasn't intending to go. I wasn't. Dexter Fowler, but
Sure,
yeah,
you
right.
weren't. Sure.
No, really, I wasn't. But anytime you have to buy something, it's so much easier to think 5 or 6 years out in front and develop it on your own. It might not be ideal. For instance, Albert Almora, you have people saying, well, he's doing okay. He's slumping. He's this, he's that.
Well, but Tim, don't you weigh it with what else you have, right? If you have like, okay, I've got like 5 out of 8 position players, like my 2 through 8.
Mm-hmm.
Solid. There's a window here. Like if I can buy a left fielder to kind of round out things, I'm like, that's kind of like GMs have to weigh that stuff all the time. Like we do too as fans. I mean, we look at this and go, there's a window. We've got 2 through whatever that are locked up, but we really need that left fielder. We really need that leadoff guy. And that's where GMs like tend to like, right? I mean, they got to make that deal.
Yeah. You have to do it, and you have to give up something to get it. And the key would be to have enough stuff in the tank. So when you do make that one trade, the best example that I have on something like that was the Matt Garza trade number 2. The Matt Garza trade number 1 was phenomenal. The Cubs, Jim Hendry had no pitching after 2008. And you can argue whatever you want. He had a bullpen that was like 4 guys, and he had about 4 or 5 starters, and that was it. He just had nothing else, and he knew it. He had Mark DeRosa, who had value, likable player, quality player coming off a good year. He traded DeRosa for 2 relievers who did nothing, and Chris Archer. Phenomenal trade. Absolutely phenomenal trade. However, he bungled that by not having any pitching coming up with Archer. So it got to a point where, what was it? About a year later, year and a half later, maybe, Hendry realized the only way he was going to keep his job, and it became a Bobby Bonilla extension kind of a thing. The Bobby Bonilla extension was great for Bobby Bonilla, and it was great for the general manager. For New York Mets fans, it was garbage, but it was great for those 2 people because it helped both of them. The Matt Garza trade, the second one, Theo Epstein or Jim Hendry knew he needed to get a pitcher for to draw 3,000 fans. If he didn't get 3,000 fans, he was going to lose his job. And Garza for Chris Archer was what was necessary for him to possibly save his job. Whether he did or not wasn't really the wasn't really the issue. The issue was he had to trade whatever he could, and he only had 2 pitchers in the minor league system that Tampa Bay was interested in, Chris Archer and Trey McNutt. And Andrew Friedman knew which guy to insist on. So the Cubs ended up trading their best piece in the minor league system for Matt Garza, which didn't work out very well in the long term for the Cubs. I'll just put it that way.
To say the least.
And if you only have 2 guys in your system that are worth any value, or 2 pitchers in your system that are of any value, or 2 outfielders in your system that are of any value, that's danger time, because that's when you get screwed. That's when you do it to yourself. Right now, the Cubs don't have the, this guy's going to be the next Jacob deGrom or Syndergaard or Bumgarner or whoever you want. They don't have that guy. But they have Dwayne Underwood, Trevor Clifton, Swarmer, Michael Rucker, Thomas Hatch, Alex Lang, Corey Abbott. Any of them could be 2 wins above starters in the major leagues. Any one of them. Now, which one? I don't know. Could it be that none of them do that well? Sure, it's possible. but it's also just as likely. I think, when you have a list of 12 guys that have all done really well at the minor league level and they're getting toward the top of the minor league level, there's that percentage chance for each one of them. And you throw the percentages together, at some point, you should have 3 or 4 of them that do well. And the Cardinals have been doing that for decades. It's never necessarily been, it has to be Carlos Martinez. It just hasn't worked out so far. But they have enough guys in the system. Here, we'll call up Gomber. And he shuts down the Dodgers. Oh, how'd that happen? Because he's a good pitcher. Yeah. And the knuckleheads online who, this guy's a terrible pitcher. No, he isn't. How many minor league games did you listen to his? Well, none. Okay, well then how do you know he's a terrible pitcher? Well, I've never heard of him before. Sounds like a you problem.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Tim, because I think the consensus, at least among the baseball touts, is that the Cubs minor league system is bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, exactly. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Do you think that that's justified? I mean, obviously you spend more time paying attention to them than I think a lot of the people do. And they're relying on, what they hear from people that they talk to, whereas right. You actually have eyes on. Is this the bottom of the barrel?
No. Their system is very deep because the way I phrased it last year, and people would kind of look, I could tell through the internet connection that people were looking at me kind of, no, you're full of crap. Last year, take a guess how many players the Cubs lost in the Rule 5 draft.
I'm going to guess.
To the Padres?
I don't think the Padres took one. I don't think the Padres took. Cubs lost 4 guys in the Rule 5 draft. One in the major league portion and 3 in the minor league portion. So what that says to me is 4 teams saw the players that the Cubs could not protect in the Rule 5 setup and said, that guy's better than what we have.
Right.
The Blue Jays took one. The Mets took one. The Orioles took one. Well, the Orioles take one from everybody every year. I think they're required to have 9 Rule 5 guys a year. But
they're not allowed to sign international prospects.
They're still
they're actually starting to do
they have
that.
A fantastic ownership group.
They do.
Their ownership group is my car just ran into an abutment. It's but the Cubs don't have a whole lot of high-end talent, but again, Daniel Ponce de Leon. How many teams in, let's say, 14 months are going to say, Daniel Ponce de Leon, we would not want him in our organization at all? How many major league teams would say that?
Well, there were I could argue, Tim, 29, right?
28. The Cubs wanted him.
Okay, fine. But I mean, I'll say this: there are examples beyond Ponce de Leon. There's Kevin Segrist, drafted in the 13th round.
I think it was Segrist. I had a great time with somebody online back a number of years ago. I was commenting that something along the lines of, well, there was that time that Kevin Segrist was the 8th best pitcher on his team. And somebody said, no, Segrist was never the 8th best guy on his team. What about in the Arizona League? Or the Florida State League, I mean.
Yeah.
And suddenly they went quiet. Wasn't he the guy that was a 19th round draft pick?
He was in the teens. I know that. He was not.
Yeah. There Segrist, they had a number of guys in that. Matt Adams was one of them who
he was a late.
Where did he come from? What the Cubs and the Cardinals both do is they develop players. They know what they're looking for, and what they're looking for isn't necessarily what everyone else is looking for. Other people are, how fast does he run the 60? How strong is his arm?
I want to ask you something about pitching, though. I mean, just pitching and the Cubs related. Mm-hmm. So the Cubs have obviously, from the years of whatever. I mean, people quote unquote call it tanking. Fine, whatever. But they had Theo take over and Jed, and they had a plan. And so the one thing I've respected about the Cubs and what they did and the Ricketts family is that they were pretty transparent about, hey, look, this is we can't free agent this
everybody.
Way. We can't sign this away. We can't throw
Right.
money at it and turn this boat around in a year. Don't expect that anymore. Previous GMs tried to do that. Andy McPhail. They tried to sign in guys like Soriano. Soriana. I'm sorry, I was trying to pronounce it like Canela. But this kind of thing has and the shitbag San Diego Padres that should be probably contracted from the league or DFA'd in general. They've tried to do the same thing, but at what point in time do the Cubs, as far as pitching development,
it's getting there. It's getting there. What used to happen in the Cubs system, and people who have been following since, I'll say the previous century would probably be quite familiar with this. When they call up a guy from the minor leagues, starter, reliever, it's, I really don't want to call this guy up. For instance, when the Cubs were good in 2003, how many relievers did they have?
Oh, God.
Hold on. They have Farnsworth
How many?
still?
They like Samardzija. Was it Samardzija or was it?
That was before Samardzija.
Farnsworth.
Joe Borowski.
Farnsworth. Yeah, Kyle Farnsworth was it? Kyle Farnsworth was their second best reliever.
Yep.
That's scary.
And the only thing he was good at was coming outside the linebacker and tackling other players.
Exactly. Whereas
he was
now,
good at running the rail at Murphy's bleachers.
Yeah, that's true too.
Whereas Farnsworth, I guess if you were to comp him to somebody now, it would be a bit like Dylan Maples. And Dylan Maples right now is sitting in Iowa because he's not good enough to be he was with the team tonight, but he's 10th reliever in the chain.
Yep.
And they have pitching on the way. It's not there yet. It won't be ready in April.
Well,
it won't be ready in May.
Mills is making the start tomorrow.
Well, guys, I guess what I'm asking is, look, the Cubs have a pretty smart front office. I mean, nobody's going to argue that. If we argue that, we're just being stubborn. So you got a guy like Theo, you got a guy like Jed, you got a. I'm assuming that they're developing a minor league scouting and draft system that's going to eventually figure it out and say, hey, look, phase one of this plan was we got to have position players. We're going to draft that. We're going to develop that. We know we're going to have to buy pitchers, which is not what we want to do long term, but what we have to do. So, Tim, do you feel like they're at that point now where, all right, we've got kind of a core of players here. Like we got a guy like Bryant. We got not Schwarber. Schwarber's not the Last Jedi. He's not long term.
You have guys. Yeah.
Right. But are they at the point? Are they at the point where they're going to be like, okay, pitching and defense, like to start transitioning to that? All right, what the Braves did, like for years, right? Pitching and defense. Do you guys see Theo and Jed and the Cubs like kind of moving into that phase?
They don't. The Cubs don't draft, nor do they sign internationally. First baseman, left fielders, or designated hitters.
Okay.
They draft guys up the middle. They sign players up the middle: catchers, pitchers, shortstops, center fielders, third baseman, right fielders.
Well, give me one example of who they drafted internationally. Never mind. I'm just kidding.
The guys I'm following now: Fabian Pertuz, Rochester Cruz, Pedro Martinez, Vitamer, Joaquin, guys who, again, nobody's ever heard of, but they're guys up the middle. They don't have the guys who, this guy's going to hit 37 home runs in 6 years, but he can't play defense, which is a bit why I think Jimenez was tradable, because I really don't think I'm a big Eloy Jimenez fan. I don't think he could play outfield in the National League, because I really don't think he could play 5-6 days in a row. He's a lot better served in the American League, where he can play 3 or 4 games a week in the outfield, DH twice. And I think that was a realization they didn't want to have to come to. But part of the reason the trade for Quintana happened was because Jimenez wasn't or Jimenez, however you want, he wasn't going to be able to be a starter for the Cubs long term, because he was going to have to play defense with the Cubs, and that really wasn't going to work. And if the guys in Double A over their last 20 starts, I think 17 or 18 of them, they'd given up 2 earned runs or less. The pitching is getting there at the AA level. It's one thing to say at the low A level we have pitching. It's one thing to say at the advanced A level we have pitching. But when you start pooling pitching so that, well, we have a guy who's really good in AA and he'd look really good in AAA too, but we don't really have a guy in AAA that we want to rub out to move this guy up. That's when you start having pooling, when you start having 8, 9, 10, 12 starting pitchers that you can call up if needed. That's when you have pitching depth. Not only can you call them up, but other teams will say, wow, how about we give you this guy you're really interested in, and you send us 2 of those pitchers that we're kind of interested in, and some kid from the Dominican League that we kind of like that's a shortstop. Then you can start making trades because you have depth. Forever, the Cardinals have had depth.
Tim, this has been great.
A quick Boston Red Sox update.
Oh, great.
Oh, okay.
They've shut the Cleveland Indians down 7-0.
No.
There you go.
But I thought the Indians were on a roll. They were suddenly resurgent. I thought that was
we got the Red Sox. Hey, Mom, we bought another championship. I lost my khakis. I lost my khakis. You mean your pants or your car keys? I lost my khakis.
The one team that didn't believe the 197 rule this year. I don't care about the 197 rule. We're going to blow by it anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and they're the one team who did that, and they have the best record in the league. Nobody else wanted to go there. They did. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
This is going to be a morbid thing for a Cardinal fan to wish. But if the Cardinals cannot get there to the World Series this year, if they don't, and they've got a basket.
When they don't.
Pete, let me finish. No, you're a dick.
Yes.
If the Cardinals can't do it, and I'm circumspect because they have a lot of young players, right? A lot of young players that haven't been there, haven't done that. It's just a lot of variables and stuff that could happen. I love the team I'm watching right now, but look, if it gets late, if that happens to be a Cubs Red Sox World Series,
that'd be interesting.
I will fucking hate that song by Dropkick Murphy. I hated it in 2013 because everybody grew a beard and they thought they were badass. Like, yeah, look at me. Fucking, was a guy?
Trendy.
Hold on. No, I can't remember the guy. Johnny Gomes grew a beard and just batted pissed off the whole time. He tried to beat Jake Arrieta before Jake Arrieta was Jake Arrieta. He tried to bat. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to mad my way into success in this World Series. Like, fuck you, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
How you like that apples?
Yeah, how you like them? Hey, look, Ma. Hey, look, Theo bought us another championship. Okay, yeah, Red Sox. Yeah. Fuck you. Don't want to see it.
I tell you that the entire collapse by the Red Sox in 2011, that was just beyond. They weren't they about 99.8% to make the playoffs?
Somebody, you know what? Whoever plays them in the World Series, I will sport the flag. If your Cubs happen to make it there, they beat their asses, I will fly that fucking disgusting W out in front of my house. Much more satisfying than see all these underdog fans all of a sudden like, hey, I'm a Southie. We're all tough. You're not tough. You apply for Target cards like all of us do. Get out of here.
Ron is fired up tonight. Hey, Tim, we want to thank you for joining us.
Not a problem. Sorry I prevented you from getting to Cardinals stuff.
Hey, guys, wait, Pete, don't walk us out yet. Guys, do we have any other score updates tonight? Is there a Milwaukee? Did they play?
No, they did not.
Milwaukee was off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cards and Brewers both had the night off. So
damn. I'm
disappointed. And let me see.
I'm totally disappointed.
The Brewers get the Pirates. The Cardinals get the Rockies, I think, this weekend.
That's fair.
And on my board, I'll get to cross off numbers either way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I am to that point where when a game gets over, a number gets crossed off. Because I get that way.
So
I get that way. And then
if people want to go in depth and follow you on Cubs prospects, where can they find you online?
Tim815 is the easiest way anymore. I used to have a site that I was running, but then something ended up happening, and I'm now writing periodically for Bleed Cubby Blue. Again, mostly on prospects, development. Sometimes I talk about bullpen usage and stupid manager decisions, and Dave Roberts using his backup catcher as a pinch hitter in the sixth inning. What the hell was that about? And stuff like that. But the Bleed Cubby Blue, I write stuff there. But if you want to ask me questions about prospects, look me up at Tim815 on Twitter. And the minor league, the Dominican League season ends on Saturday for the Cubs. And Luis Rodriguez finished the season with a 0.73 ERA.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, exactly. And Benjamin Rodriguez, the guy who, again, nobody's ever heard of, and Baseball America isn't talking about, he's 6'3", first year, 17, 18 years old. He hit 95 in his last outing. So, yeah, there's stuff coming. There's stuff coming. People can be as belligerent as they want about the Cubs don't have anybody in the top 100. But when you look at all these trades that the Cubs have made, teams wanted Ricky Thomas.
Right.
Teams wanted all the players that they traded for. They wanted these guys. It wasn't, oh, crap, now we have to take somebody that they could take in cash. They wanted the players instead. Raleigh Lacey, he's going to be a very good pitcher in the Rangers system. Doesn't mean he's going to make it to the major leagues, but if you're a good pitcher in advanced A ball, you know what? You're a good baseball player.
Very good.
And,
Tim, we really appreciated having you on. And
not a problem.
In the off season, maybe we'll have you back on again, and we can talk a little bit of Cubs development and what to look forward to in the 2019.
Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, hey Tim, man, from a Cardinals fan perspective too, it's really, you obviously have a ton of knowledge, and it'd be great to get you on once again before like the trade deadline or
not a problem.
You have obviously an in-depth knowledge of what the Cubs have to deal with in their organization. I think all of us would love to hear about that.
Not a problem. I wouldn't mind doing a Cardinals podcast at some point down the line. I'm not more from an educational perspective, but
that's proprietary, man. I mean, that's
there you go. There you go. I've been at it for
you gotta sign an NDA.
Time.
You gotta sign an NDA. Jack Brickhouse got me through some tough years when I was a child. So yeah, that's how old I am. All right, Tim. Well, it's been wonderful. I mean, absolutely wonderful having you on tonight. So
not a problem.
Look
Thanks
forward to
a lot.
bringing you on again. You bring a wealth of knowledge. Clearly, we can't fit you into a single episode. So you got a lot. Yeah, we look forward to doing it again.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, you guys have a great week.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thanks,
Take
Tim.
care.
Thanks
Take care. We're reaching out to you again.
All righty.
All right.
Goodbye.
Damn. Whoa.
Gentlemen,
that's a lot of information.
Oh my God! I mean, he was on top of his stuff. I mean,
wind him up and let him go.
I'm actually no kidding. Like, we don't even have to do Team Rivals. We can just like Team Rivals, Tim Huwe episode, and just put our shit down and just let him go. Yeah, no, he was a great guest. I'm glad you guys finally brought a Cub on the show.
Cubs fan.
Cubs fan, but I mean, a guy that knew that much. I mean, wow. I mean, I was impressed by how much he knew.
Yeah, and following him on Twitter, he is very active. He is, when he's watching these games on MILB or the Dominican Summer League, he is tweeting stuff out about it. So
wow. I mean, guys like that, I mean, they
a lot of knowledge.
It's like a guy like that. Like, we all watch the major leagues, right? You got people like this, like Kyle Reese for the Cardinal side, like watches minor leagues like we watch major leagues, like 4X.
Yeah, because they're watching 6-7 games a day.
Right. It's incredible. So
I paying attention to the major league team. So
I don't know how they do it, but yeah.
Well, so listen, there's obviously other things that we need to talk about because a lot has happened in the last 7 days, man.
Holy shit.
Tuesday, apparently Tuesday was the non-waiver trade deadline. Because Jesus, and not just the Cubs and the Cardinals, but I mean, there were names flying around of guys who did get traded, guys who had been claimed, guys who had cleared waivers. I mean, it's been nuts this week. All of the activity that's gone on. I mean, obviously, the Cubs picking up Murphy, the reunion with Fat Adams. Apparently, Andrew McCutchen has cleared waivers. The Dodgers claimed.
I wanted to ask him while he was on, but there was a tweet that he retweeted, and that was damn it, I missed it. This is a different one. I didn't get to ask him this. I'm like, Zach Greinke pulling out a scouting report out of his pocket. Yeah. He retweeted it, so I wanted to ask him, but all right, fine. I missed my opportunity.
You did. You missed your window.
But no, Pete, there have been 2 moves between our clubs this week. Bringing in Daniel Murphy, who 2 years ago was a premium free agent.
Well, he's a Cubs killer. I mean,
he kills.
Well, that's what you do. That's what you do in a pennant race at late season. I mean, if somebody's kicking your ass, I mean, it's what you do.
Well, and then in what was it 2015 or 2016 when he was with the Mets?
It was 15.
And
when they knocked us out in the NLCS.
Oh my God!
What was it? 4 home runs in that series. He was
in the Dark Knight.
He was hitting like 450.
Oh, by the way, that's
he
damn it! I didn't go back. Hey, look. Evidently, Harvey and Hamilton have cleared waivers.
Yes.
So deal's imminent.
Hamilton clear? No, I thought Hamilton got claimed and he got pulled back.
Nope. What I saw a little bit ago. I mean, I'll scroll back up.
I know Kutch cleared. I thought that Hamilton might have.
He cleared, and
why the hell would Hamilton
Giants
clear?
Are looking to deal him.
Guys, let's just break this down for a minute. I mean, I understand he's fast as lightning.
Why did he clear?
But why the F? Just asking you guys here. Like, think about your teams, our teams. Like, why the hell would you clear a 25-man roster space for a guy that can run really fast, can't hit it with the shit, just to bring him in at the end of the game by chance that you have somebody on in the 9th inning?
Well,
like, who cares? Like, why would you do that?
At the price, because the Cubs did do that with Terrence Gore, right? And they've stashed him down in AAA, but he's not going to cost them anything. Harvey,
well, as long as Hamilton doesn't cost anything, sure. But
but he does. He's owed millions. I think he's got a $4.6 million contract this year. So you're looking at adding $1 million. If you're near the cap, a player with that profile, somebody, he can run, he can play the hell out of the defense, but he can't hit a lick. Is he really worth $1 million?
He can only get on base if he replaces somebody that got on base.
Exactly.
Like, are you going to sacrifice a roster spot for that? Like, really, in the playoffs down the stretch? Hell no.
And to correct you, Ron, Billy Hamilton was claimed. He didn't clear. He was claimed, but it's unlikely that the trade is going to go through. Harvey
I can't imagine that. God.
But that one still has time. Absolutely right as far as Kutch clearing waivers, and they want to deal.
Well, sorry, I read that tweet like 45 minutes ago, but a lot happened between.
You've been drinking.
Nope.
So, what was more surprising in your guys' opinions? The trade for Daniel Murphy, or the Cards picking up Fat Adams for basically nothing? I mean, it was
cash considerations.
Yeah, the Nats let him go.
Can I do this first?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I love this for a bunch of reasons. Well, one, he's not fat anymore. You Cub fans.
Yeah, but I mean,
Fuckers.
It's a name that's stuck.
Well, I know it is, but here's the thing with Matt Adams, power hitting left-handed bat, which the Cardinals don't have off the bench right now. They haven't had all year.
Can't play defense.
He can play first base. That's his natural position. No, when they try to force him to play outfield, that is not his natural position. So yes, Carp can play third base.
Where's Jerko going to play?
Jerko could be a right-handed bat off the bench.
Ooh, that's
now, since they brought Adams in, that doesn't mean Jerko is going to not start.
Right.
I don't know. You probably want Jerko hitting right now more than you want Carpenter hitting.
Yeah, I would imagine actually that it's
Yeah, you guys are hopscotching topics.
Sorry.
Don't do that. We're on Matt Adams right now. There's no risk to bringing Matt Adams back in.
No,
They only paid cash.
Yep.
He's a left-handed power-hitting bat. Now, here's the most important aspect of this. Like, you got a young team right now with the Cardinals, right? They have a good as chance as any to get in the playoffs at the end of the year, right? So
the wild card. So
you bring in a guy like Matt Adams that has been there, that has done that. Like, he's been a young Cardinal. He's been in the playoffs, and he has nothing to lose by being there. I think he will be a positive influence, and he will be actually positive bat to bring in late in the games. No, I don't expect in Game 7 of the World Series to see Matt Adams at first base. No way. Not even.
You guys aren't going to see Game 7 of the World Series.
Well, fuck you, Pete. But but any point down the stretch, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the guy you're going to see there, but he's been there. He's done that. He's done that in that uniform. He was there a year ago. So there's no risk, no negative to bringing him back.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree. No, it's a move that absolutely made sense.
Yeah, it was a good pickup.
I never expected Daniel Murphy to make it through to the Cubs.
I didn't think he would clear waivers. I mean,
the Cubs are last on the waiver claim.
So that means the Cardinals waved him off.
Yeah.
Every
team in the NL let him go and allowed him to get
the Cubs had the best record, right? So
none of them. And it was clear the Nationals weren't just going to let him go, right? So if the Cardinals had claimed him, the Nats were going to say, "Oh, here, you can have it." They were looking to get a return on that. They would have effectively blocked him from going to the Cubs, and they didn't. I'm surprised the Brewers didn't claim him because, I mean, heck, who doesn't need another, can't field infielder?
That's right.
The Brewers would have played him in left field and not at second base.
Are you sure? What a third baseman at second, and
speaking of the Brewers, how'd they do today?
They had the night off again. We already covered that.
Cato was silent tonight, so the Brewers are off.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, was he?
Boy.
Was he silent tonight?
He was.
I'm sorry. I'm scrolling right now to see.
And actually, the other night, he's like, "I'm getting on a plane. I just want to let everybody know that the Brewers still suck and that they're the worst managed team in the league."
And then they won.
And then they won. Yes.
I have to say, somewhat along those lines, I want to apologize to all the Cubs fans. Last night when I got home from work, I was winding down, so I grabbed a beer, bag of chips, and I ate some salsa. And Cardinals won last night, so you guys can hang that one on me. I apologize. That was my fault.
Yeah, that's
because I was watching the game.
We appreciate that, Pete.
I was watching the game. It was 1-0. I started eating salsa. All of a sudden, 1-1. I fell asleep. 3-1. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. Speaking of which,
somebody mentioned Cato.
Yeah, somebody did. Yeah, we were.
So what did you say? I mean, is he on it tonight, or is he off?
No, he's off tonight.
Yeah.
What?
What is that?
What the hell is this?
People at Brewers, listen up. Cancer sucks. Giving Chase P.O.S. Anderson, my precious, another chance is and has been demise of teams. Cancer lost team week before All-Star game. Anderson, you don't suck a little. You sucks infinities. Why is Cancer manager of Brewers Pistachio? You suck as owner. Suck.
I love it.
My God. That was violent.
That was.
Cato
was angry.
I don't know how you got it. I don't know how you got a signal that strong from Middle Earth, but
I think he was using one of the Palantirs to send his signal. So
the Lost Seeing Stones. Nobody knows where they are. Must be in Cato's.
So, gents, Who's going to win the Gold Glove at second base in the National League?
Oh boy. I'll let you guys start with this.
He makes one goddamn.
I'm glad you cleared your throat.
And everybody thinks he deserves the Golden Glove. You know what? He could have, fielded that cleanly, except for he bobbles it and then he causes himself to have to rush that throw. Nobody talks about that, but hey, it was close and it looked good. Javi makes everything look good.
I will say this. The numbers don't lie. Colton Wong, according to the numbers, is an outstanding second baseman. And he also passes the eye test. Thankfully I can watch Cardinals games on my Fox Sports app. And so I've seen more Cardinals games this year than I ever have before. And he passes the eye test as well. He's a good second baseman. I think it's actually a little bit ridiculous, one, to be talking about any postseason awards when it's not even September yet, because we don't know what's going to happen. But two, I don't understand why Cubs fans and Cardinals fans can't accept that two of the best second basemen in the major leagues are playing, in one of the most heated rivalries in the midst of a pennant race. I mean, give the other guy credit, but nobody wants to do that. No Cardinals fan, none of the zealots want to even allow that Javi Baez is a good defensive player and is a good defensive second baseman. And similarly, Cubs fans don't want to hear anything but that Javi is the best defensive player in baseball. And neither of those statements is true. But here we are. And we're having
and Javi's like ranked 5th in all of the NL in defensive WAR. So there's only 4 other players in front of him I'm not taking individual defensive metrics here. This is like a combined defensive metric. Right. And Javi's 5th in all of the National League. Colt Wong's not even in the top 10. Even though he may be above Baez in some of these individual statistics. Well, one, Colt Wong has most if not all of his starts at second base. Javi has played, I think it's 70 games at second base, but he's also got like 15 at shortstop. He's got 10 maybe at short, and 1 at first. I don't even know I'm kind of guesstimating here. I don't know the numbers exactly, but that's kind of an approximate.
Well, Elliott, you're not wrong. I mean,
and I'm not taking anything from Colt Wong. He is a great second baseman. So, and he makes plays, and I'm kind of tongue-in-cheek here with the play, but it was a great play.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, hold on for a second here, because most Cardinal fans that have been watching all year, like every game, know that Colton Wong has not played every game at second base. We know that the first half of the season that Matheny exiled him for quite some time, right? So he has not been there as many games as Baez. We all know this. And
I think he's been there 10 more games than Baez. I think
fine. If you want to break down like at that particular position, but I mean, think about it. Like, okay, this guy is a second baseman, but he can play short and third, and like he's moved around. I don't think a guy should be penalized for that. So a Gold Glove, like a certain position for a guy who kind of journeys around, it's really unfair to at least that person.
And that's I think where Cardinals fans kind of have a blind spot, in that I think that the people who are talking up Javi's Gold Glove candidacy recognize that he is an outstanding defenseman, but he doesn't, with the Cubs, he doesn't have a position. There aren't a whole lot of players on the Cubs who do have a single position, and there's no Gold Glove for outstanding utility player.
No, it's not. Right. Yeah. Maybe there should be. But we had like
they did with the outfield. It used to be that there were 3 Gold Gloves for the outfield, but it was always 3 center fielders who got them, and it was only in recent history that they changed it and handed them out for
left field, center, right field. Yes.
Well, but we had one of the two birds on a bat guys on the show before ours, who's obviously a Cardinal fan, but all of us are like in unison on this. Like, would we not want to see Javi Baez in our uniform at second base? Like, of course. Like he's one of the best defenders in the league. Wong, post Matheny, quite frankly, post Matheny has been like he's kind of come into his own, not being under that, I guess, that management structure.
Right.
He's had his steady starts. He's had his steady, lineup every day after day. And so Colton Wong has been a much different player in the second half. And I think that's what most people are forgetting is that look at the starts, the amount of time played in the first half is way different than it is now. And so by default, I think Baez will probably get, if there is a second base Gold Glove given to Baez, it's going to be a lot off time at that position. And it's not taking anything away from his performance at that position because he did great. I mean, no Cardinal fan would not want to have Javi Baez as their second baseman.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say no Cardinal fan because there are some of them on Twitter who are
fine, whatever.
Yeah, I know.
Offense, not in the equation. We're talking about defense right now.
Yeah, I know.
But
I'll tell you, I think that getting back to the point I made earlier, I think it's a little bit ridiculous to be talking about postseason awards when we still have a month of games left because let's say Anthony Rizzo goes on a tear and he hits 400 in the month of September, hits 20 home runs, and carries the Cubs to 100 wins. He's not supposed to be in the MVP conversation because he had a poor start to the year. There's a lot of recency bias when it comes to the awards. And if you're hot at the right time and you're with a winning team, I mean, we know this is true. If you're with a winning team, you're going to get a lot more consideration. And that's true of all of the awards. It's not just the MVP. It's true of everything. It's true of the Cy Young. And
you can talk to Ken Rosenthal.
Yep.
Anybody, they're going to say the same thing. Like the biggest contribution towards a winning effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think personally, I think that's the way it should be. It's the most valuable player. It's not the best player. And those are two different things.
They are.
Absolutely. Agree.
I don't like when you agree.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. And then it gives us nothing to argue about.
Yeah, pretty much. You guys are dicks. Pete, we done?
Yeah. I think so, because from what I understand, Elliott's got a hard out. So when you're not watching us live, you can find
hard
us.
on or hard out?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
At teamofrivalspodcast.com. We're on Facebook at Team of Rivals Podcast and on Twitter at Team of Rivals Pod. You can also find us on Instagram at Team of Rivals Podcast. If you want to contact us, send us an email at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com. You can also contact Elliott on Twitter at
TOR_Elliott.
And of course, catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts: iTunes, Radio Public, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, and Google Play. If you do happen to listen to us on Radio Public, it throws a couple of pennies our way each time you listen. And of course, if you want to throw even more pennies our way.
No, I can't feel my leg.
I accidentally hit that. I'm sorry.
Sure you did. Can't feel your legs because Ron's been playing around on Zazzle. That's all I got.
Love y'all.
All right, boys.
Talk to you next week. Bye.